Right, can we talk about qualifying for a minute? One of the key ingredients to motorsport is seeing where they're going to start for the races, and qualifying is that. Whoever sets the fastest time in qualifying is usually on the pole, and then people get confused why the races are so boring when you have everyone starting from fastest to slowest, but that's beside the point. And there are many ways on how you can set the grid for a race. You can set it off the previous race's result. You could be New Zealand and have those weird handicap marble races. Or you could have a very interesting thing called the reverse grid. How it works is basically what it says on the tin. You take a grid and you flip it the other way. And many motorsport series utilize this format of figuring out what a grid is. You've got the British Touring Car Championship with their third race, the Super Series in Australia with their second race, and many more other categories utilize the reverse grid. And supercars have used this in the past, so I'm going to talk about the history of the reverse grid formation in supercars and maybe a possible future use of the format. So it all starts in the nation's capital, Canberra, for the GMC 400 in 2000. They utilised a format where for the first race it was set from qualifying, and instead of using progressive grid to figure out the second race, they flipped the finishing result from race 1. So instead of Garth Tander and Glenn Seat on the front row, you had Brad Jones and Anthony Tratt starting on the front row. I think the only time Tratty has started on that spot. And the fans loved it, the TV people from Channel 10 loved it, the team owners and drivers from the fastest cars didn't like it. But it was actually good for the smaller teams because they could get the camera time and promotion that them and their sponsors desperately needed. The winner of that race was Todd Kelly, which was in fact his first ever race win, and he was the youngest race winner at the time. And this format would continue on up until the GMC 400's demise, as it was known as the Stigbar Canberra 400 in 2002. But in 2000, that wasn't the end of reverse grid racing. They decided to, in mid-season, change the rules just to get a bit more excitement in the series, and in the final 3 sprint rounds, they would have a reverse top 6. Just enough change where there adds a bit of excitement, but not enough change where it sort of ruins the whole weekend when it comes to the results. And it actually brought some exciting winners to that year. You had Russell Ingall at Oran Park, that was sort of to be expected, but the next round at Calder Park you had Mark Larkin winning his first ever race win in the series, and that came off the weekend after Oran Park where his car was it was barbecued. And then at Sandown you had the extremely small team of Stephen Ellery Racing with Stephen Ellery as their driver, winning that reverse grid race at Sandown. So it opened the opportunity for those guys that aren't necessarily good qualifiers, but are pretty good at the races where they could race their way into like 5th or 6th, get a front row start, and get a well-deserved win. But in 2001, this format was axed for whatever reason. They still had the odd 20-minute sprint rounds at Barbagallo and Calder, and for whatever reason, they didn't utilise this format for those rounds. But in 2006, it would make a triumphant return. Huzzah! Reverse grids are back with their whole full reverse grid spiel. Holy hell were those races chaotic though. And once again you had a weird list of winners. You had Mark Scaife winning one of the races from 28th or so on the grid, and you had the likes of Dean Canto winning his first race in Perth, and Jason Richards winning his first race win at Winton. But once again, it was scrapped for 2007, probably just because of all the chaos it caused. I mean, so much damage this format would have caused, but it was so exciting for the fans, just not for those drivers sitting up the front. So I've thought of an idea as your resident Supercars fan here on YouTube, how I would bring back the whole reverse grid spiel and still keep Boost involved somehow. So this would be utilised for the 440 rounds only, so those 3 race formats. This would be race 2. You'd have race 1 and race 3 as qualifying normally, but race 2, that would be a half points race. You know why? Because that would be the reverse grid race. And just like the British Touring Car Championship, where it's a random number between a certain number and another number, this will be a random number between 8th and 14th having the grid flipped. So the winner, let's say Brock Feeney, pulls the number out of a hat. If that number is 12, that's where he starts. Now, how does Boost get involved? Because I'm sure they'll want to keep their stickers and eyes and all that sort of stuff on everything pole-wise. Well, the pole sitter of this race gets a small cash bonus. Let's say like $500 for the pole sitter for the second race. So you can still get that boost cap on, say, I'm glad to start on pole, full credit to the boys, stuff like that. But this is where the kicker comes in. If you're Brock Feeney starting 12, what happens if you win the race? Well, there's a slightly bigger cash bonus for winning the race from after winning race 1. Let's say it was like $5,000. And once again, you get your race winners check, and then Boost comes in and says, congratulations, here's big $5,000 thingy for Bobby. It's sort of meets in the middle. It gets enough excitement where some people can get those wins and podiums and stuff like that, but doesn't completely Mickey Mouse the results where you can finish 18th in a race, start in like 5th, and win the second race. But that is how I would bring back reverse grid racing, and a bit of history as well on the matter. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe so you can see my shorts and see my next video, whatever that is.